1920 Kings insider and creator of the Kings. It's what the world has been waiting to know. How do you feel about the overtime rules in the NFL?
Man, I think they're just fine. I do. Like, to be honest with you, if you give up a touchdown, you deserve to lose.
Okay.
And that's what we saw. That's just my opinion. And as far as extra points go, have you guys ever kicked an extra point? Have you
No,
ever like
no.
lined up and actually had someone hold the ball and kick one?
I tried when I was like 13.
Yeah, it's basically like dropping your foot. That's about it. You don't. I mean, an extra point is so short. To kick a football up in the air and go. What is it like 20? What is
You're
it?
talking about
19
the old
yards?
2 yard?
Yeah, the old 2 yards. Like what? 19 yards. So
Yeah.
even still, what is it now? 35.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Bring back the
it's not
19.
that hard. It's not that hard to kick a field, especially
But
for
it's
someone who does it professionally.
extra points have gotten way more entertaining since they've moved them back.
Yeah, because I mean, you're putting human error in. You know
And
the
that's fun.
No,
yeah,
no need for that for
I
one.
agree.
We don't need to do all that for one. Make it worth 3 then. Make the extra point worth 3. There's no need to do that for 1 point. 1 point, just get it over.
This is one of your strangest fights. I got it. When you said the other day, move the extra point back to the 50. It was like, wait, what?
That's a waste.
Or move it back to the 2. Like, wait, what? Why?
We don't need all that for 1 more point. We really don't. Actually, they probably should go for 2 more often if they're going to do that, to be honest.
I think that's the point.
And they never do it. So just they're not going to do it. So
because the sheet doesn't tell them to do it, Kenny.
That's what I'm saying.
The sheet's got to tell them.
They tried to get more 2-point conversions. We've seen after 10 years, however long this has been, it doesn't work. Just put it back to the regular 2-yard line. Just do it that way. But we were joking there. James Hand was here for one reason and one reason only, the real reason, the one thing everybody wants to know. Do you enjoy Swamp People?
Swamp People.
The show.
Nope. I've never seen Swamp People.
You know, to be honest with you,
James.
The chat, I want to know what you guys think about this on YouTube and Twitch. I feel like James Ham would be like one of the people on Swamp People. Essentially, they go alligator hunting, and like sometimes they got 2 people. One person got the alligator tied up, and then the other person has to, give him one shotgun to the head to kill him. I feel like that's something
James would build a house for the alligators and just lure them all into the house.
Yeah, I'm
like
not
a 2,500 square foot house for the alligators.
I'm not a gun person at all. So like I don't hunt. I don't, and actually I live on a lake and I have water in my backyard. I hate to fish. I can't stand it. It's just too slow. I can't sit there. Yeah, my dad and my brother are both fishermen. My youngest son likes to fish a little bit here and there, but I can't handle it.
This is all just Kenny's attempt to not talk about the Sacramento Kings.
Try not to.
That's what this all is.
We can talk 49ers. We can talk one of the greatest.
That's why he brought up Swamp People. He was like, let's not talk about the Kings. Well, you called the 49ers on Friday. That shouldn't be forgotten. You were like, I think I got the 49ers going into this one.
Yeah.
Coming out of the weekend against the Packers. Obviously, the game didn't go. At least I don't think the game went the way that we thought it would in terms of how we got to the final result. But it was, I mean, it's pretty amazing, James, that the 49ers are back in the NFC Championship again after the year they had last year, drafting a quarterback 3rd overall and everything that happened, the first, 8 weeks of the season when I think they were 3-5. And here they are, second to last game of the year.
Yeah, if you looked at this weekend of football just overall, it had something for everyone, right? Like, so that snow game felt like a really, really high level pitching duel. It was just crazy watching 2 teams go at it in the snow, and the fight was nuts. Watching, bad special teams play change everything. But overall, I mean, if you're a football fan, even if you're not a football fan, if you just get dragged up like a party to watch a crazy weekend of ball, that was so incredibly enjoyable. Every single game was crazy and fun. And, it was good to see Aaron Rodgers lose. It was good to see the Niners win. That duel between Mahomes and Allen was just crazy. Even, Joe Burrows, like this is going to be fun. This is what you like, put it all together at the end, and watching Tom Brady come back from 2 touchdowns in like the last 3 minutes. That was crazy. All of it. I just I'm slightly confused how Cooper Kupp gets left wide open again and again.
Damien said I couldn't talk about that.
Yeah, and I'm slightly confused how the Chiefs just like whatever you want to do. What was it Davis that had 200 yards and
Oh man,
like 4 touchdowns? Like
oh,
what? Like just crazy watching some of these highlight reels. But I think it had something for everyone, and I think that last game was like an epic. It was like the 4th of July. It was like that was a grand finale of grand finales of literally the greatest weekend of football in the history of football.
it's funny you compared Niners Packers to like a pitcher's duel because I loved Allen versus Mahomes as much as anybody. That was phenomenal stuff. But I'm not a big like I don't like all of one thing, right? So I don't want to see a 6-3 defensive struggle, and I don't want to see 39-36 where the defenses have no chances, right? Like I need a happy medium. And it's almost like like I watch boxing, right? And when these guys are like slugging it out in the middle of the ring, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then in about the 4th or 5th round, you realize neither one of them have knockout power. So they're just going to be doing this for 12 rounds. Like, this isn't really fun anymore. Like, nobody's really in danger or nothing like that. That's almost how I felt about the end of that Bills Chiefs game. And that's probably plays into like my overtime thing, because as fun as that was, if you would have gave both an opportunity in overtime, nobody was stopping anybody. That's not fun. So I like the way it ended. I like that Niners-Packers matchup, 13-10. Even the Rams-Buccaneers game, that had some intrigue. I like a little bit of both, not just all offense or all defense.
If we would have had one last like smart play in the Tampa Bay game, Tampa Bay would have won. If Fournette would have stopped at the 2-yard line and sat down and let the clock burn and then let Brady score from the 2, then that game would have been different. And so look,
that's
I think
a tough call to make, though.
Oh,
that's
no,
a tough call to make.
It's happened before, though. I mean, we've seen that happen before. So I love it. Like, if you're gonna, I don't need like the crazy high scoring game. I don't need this slug out. I just want to watch good football. And that's what I think we watched. What did they say at the end of the game? There were like 4 total penalties called in that that Chiefs Bills game. I mean, that's just crazy. That's just absolutely wild. And even, like the Niners game, they had so many mistakes early in the game and they couldn't figure out how to get Debo involved. Kittle's had that drop over the middle that would have led probably to a touchdown. I mean, It was like this huge moment. And we were sitting there watching it. The clock's winding down. I'm like, you got to go back to Kittle's down the seam. And then boom, they hit it. That game was just absolutely spectacular. And I think, like, again, the weekend had something for everyone. It wasn't just like too much of one thing, and to have it finish off like that, like I'm all for that crazy back and forth. And look, at some point, the Chiefs did come up with a couple of stops, and that's how they got, they rallied there at the end. And so like maybe it would have gone a different way. I don't know. I mean, at some point you do have to defend the guy running right down the middle of the field, right? Like,
there are some numbers because you mentioned the penalties, and I wanted to look into that. 4 penalties, 0 turnovers in the entire game. But there are some really stunning numbers from that game, like 53 combined first downs.
Damn,
that's an amazing number. Just for context purposes. So what do we say there? 53 in that game. The Packers and the 49ers had a combined 26.
Oh, I was gonna say 23.
My bad. They had 26.
How many punts in the Bills Chiefs game?
6.
3 or 4? No.
6?
6 total. Packers 49ers 11.
Well, the interesting thing about that game is it was like 7-7 for most of the first half. Like the scoring didn't really start to pick up until the 4th quarter.
This just keeps getting better. There were 475 total offensive yards between the two teams with the Packers and the 49ers. The Chiefs had 552.
Whew. Whew. You know, and the crazy
Amazing.
thing is that if man, he didn't even do it in this game. If the Chiefs really want to just like dominate everything and just like end this thing right now, go watch how they the 49ers use Debo and figure out how to get Tyreek Hill like those extra 5 touches. You get him those extra 5 touches, that's the greatest scoring offense in the
Bro,
history of the NFL.
Tyreek Hill waved goodbye to
Oh
somebody
yeah.
who was in front of him.
Peace.
That was
The dude was in front of him, and Tyreek was like, "Girl, bye."
Peace sign.
That's
Yeah.
crazy, dude. Man, his speed is just
It's his burst,
freakish.
but it's also his ability to hit somebody to be like in contact with someone but still have his leverage, and he can go back, he can go forward, and you just can't wrap him up. It's almost like he's covered in Crisco and you just can't wrap him up, and he's so strong. And so he always has those plays where he takes a couple of steps back and then boom, he's around everyone. You're like, how in the world did he just do that? And to me, he's so much fun to watch. That whole
Like,
team is fun to watch.
he's so small too. Like,
Yeah.
what is he, like 5? I don't want to exaggerate, but like 5'6", 5'7". So you can't, like, these big guys, they can't get a clean shot on him a lot of time because they got to bend down, they got to get down to his level to get a clean shot. And he's right in his comfort zone. He'll go right by you, right around you. Lowest man wins. All the time.
Tyreek Hill, like every opponent of the Sacramento Kings, can't be defended. We'll step out. We'll come back. We will
More
shift
swamp people.
attention. More swamp people and some Kings talk. Whatever James feels like. Coming up next here with 1320 Kings insider James Ham on Sacramento's #1 sports station. This 49er Monday continues, brought to you by Gilmore Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Right now, Gilmore is offering Niner fans a $49 furnace safety inspection. Just mention this ad. You get more with Gilmore on ESPN 1320. Is it one of each, or is that it? Damn it. Okay. 2 more. Shoot.
Hey, we have seen someone down the ball at the 2-yard line or at the 1-yard line. I remember LaDainian Tomlinson doing it.
But were they down?
They were winning.
Oh,
But I don't think they were.
burn the clock. It was to burn. Yeah, we even.
But I think it was to burn the clock while they were up.
Yeah, the other team had no timeouts, and instead of scoring a touchdown and giving them the ball back, they just got down and milked the clock.
Yeah, you give Tom Brady 4 opportunities from the 1-yard line, he's scoring every time.
I got you. It's just that's a tough. I mean, I got you. That's just a tough call to make.
You know what I thought about yesterday? This is going to stay in my head forever, and I think I'm going to transfer it to your guys' head as well. Once again, my friend who says that sports are fixed and everything is a work. Why did Sean McVay call that timeout?
Oh, I don't remember.
If they thought the Bucs got the first down, the refs said no, he was short. Fourth down. The Bucs didn't even know. Like, they didn't get a measurement. They didn't get. The only way to get like the video replay was for somebody to stop the clock, and Sean McVay stopped the clock.
It seemed like
maybe he
was it that game, or was it the Bills game where they kept stopping the clock to see the formation? They kept calling timeouts to see that the Bills were on the defensive side, kept calling timeouts so they were messing with the Chiefs. So the Chiefs would have to go in and do something different.
The Tom Brady throws the ball 3rd and 10. He throws it, guy's 9.5 yards. He gets down.
Yeah, it's tight end.
The Bucs actually think they got the first down. So they got no timeouts. They're hurrying to the line. Then they're about to run a play. The referee goes to Tom Brady. He's like, no, it's 4th down. You didn't get it. It's 4th down. It's 4th down. They don't have a timeout to review it, to challenge it, nothing. Then the Rams are out there ready to stop him on 4th and inches from like the 5. And timeout. Sean McVay calls a timeout. What? It's either incompetence or it's all a work?
Yeah. I think sometimes you want to set your defense, especially there at 4.5 yard or 4th yard. You want defensive linemen. You want to stack the box, as opposed to if it's 1st and 10 at the
I'll,
was it
I'll
that
ask,
like the 9 yard line?
I'll ask you this: what would the Bucks have wanted Sean McVay to do there? Not call a timeout or call a timeout?
Oh no, it played right into what the Bucks, were doing. But at the same time, did we know all of that was happening at the same exact moment?
That's
So
happening. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
lot. That's happening
yeah.
pretty quick.
So did McVay know that it was 4th down? Did he not? When
He
figured
probably
it
just
out?
thought he was setting up his defense. Like he probably no, I'm sure he knew it was 4th down, but he probably thought I just got to get my defense out there. He might not have known it would have been a close call to review.
Yeah.
He must not have been
I don't
watching
know.
the game.
I don't know, man. I'm not gonna call the dude incompetent because he called a timeout right
No, I
there,
don't
but
think he's incompetent. I think that decision to call the timeout was incompetent.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, every time he plays the 49ers, I just sit there and shake my head like, what are you doing? Like, you're up, what was he up? 17-0,
Yeah.
and then you just let him off the hook. You just stop playing. It was like John Gruden all over again. Just going to
we're
the
coming
prevent
back.
offense.
I love trashing Gruden. That's my favorite thing. It's 49ers Monday, brought to you by City Center Financial. Refinance today below 1.99% APR at 1866. Go City 6 this is our 1320 Kings insider. James Ham with us. We continue to talk football there through the commercial break. But James, we will shift our attention now from football back to the NBA. Let's start with, if we can, De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, late scratch from the Saturday afternoon game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Any update on him?
I checked in earlier and they had no update yet. But even that day, I was told it was nothing serious. He warmed up and felt something funny in his ankle and couldn't go. So yeah, as of right now, I think that we're in a wait and see moment, but certainly is it's something to keep an eye on because it was weird, right? It was a weird situation, and no Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Kings could have used De'Aaron Fox. Who knows what would have happened if he would have played? Certainly, I think it would have meant less minutes for Buddy Hield, who pulled another buddy. But overall, I don't like seeing a player miss a game like that out of nowhere with an injury that we'd never heard of, and so you hope that it's nothing that's going to keep him out of multiple games. But that's not what anyone seemed to think with the Kings.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, kind of came out of nowhere, expecting to see Fox, and then I saw your update that he was out. Do we know? I know we're still trying to figure out more about that, but is it one particular ankle that always gives him problem, or has he rolled both of them before? I'm thinking back to the one that he rolled really bad a couple of years ago. And does that one continue to give him problems, or is it just random ankle pain, anything like that?
It's a good question. I think it was a right ankle. That's what I think it was this time around. And I believe it was his right ankle when he had the grade 3 sprain. But like you guys played sports. Kenny, you played a lot of basketball. Once you roll one really good, that you always loosen things up and you're more likely to roll that same ankle, even if you do all of the work to get it tight. So I don't think it's anything huge. It was really weird. I don't know if you guys saw any of the post game. It was like me asking all the questions because it was on my list of questions, and I think I did hit Alvin Gentry about it. But at the same time, it was just me asking questions. It was the strangest media session of all time. I think one guy, which I'm not even sure where he was from, he came on twice and asked Harrison about Harrison Barnes getting his 10,000th point. But that was the only other question that was asked on the Zoom call. So, like, it is what it is. I mean, the Niners were playing. Everything was crazy.
Everyone
that
else
night.
was watching something that night.
There were people on the call, but they didn't ask any questions. Maybe they were in a noisy house watching football. I think we were all distracted. We all wanted to get to it. But again, I think I wrote it on Sunday. The 49ers have provided like the perfect cover for Eye on the Vine. I mean, that's what we're watching here. They've provided the cover that the Kings needed.
Well, it actually is quite beautiful because Kenny came on today, and in our first mention of the Kings, he threw his hand up and said, "Man, the season's over." And you posed the question in your Sunday musings: has the window closed for the Kings to save the season? And I'll ask you to answer the question that you titled your column.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has. By the end of this road trip, right now they're 12 games under 500, which is the worst that it's been all year. That's the lowest point that they've been at, and this team is trending downwards in a really really bad fashion. The two losses to Houston and Detroit, that probably, I mean, if you weren't already pivoting the season, that was the moment where I think the season did take a pivot, because there's a huge difference if you take those two wins and you put them on the other side. It's You're not just 10 games, you're now 8 games under 500. You're now instead of being 18 and 30, you're 20 and 28. And that's not good. But there's a huge difference in that 4-game swing there, and making those up is nearly impossible. Look at the road trip they're on. You're going to get, Atlanta, who is struggling but can still thump this team. You're going to get Boston, who's struggling, who can still hammer this team. I mean, you're going up against a bunch of good teams, and there's a good chance that you could string together you could hit 7 games, maybe 6 games. Maybe they snap and they win one, or they win 2, but you're still looking at a stretch where you're 2-7 or something, because the two home games, when you get back, it's a back-to-back and it's brutal. So at some point you have to look at your roster and at who you are as a team, and you need to start thinking about what's best for the franchise. And that's probably the most difficult thing that's happening right now, because what's best for the franchise and what's best for someone's job probably aren't the same thing at this point.
Hmm.
And that's a hard reality to face. But that's where an ownership group usually like has tough conversations about what's about to happen here. And so what that means, though, is, are you a buyer or are you a seller? We've talked about you can be both, right? But at this point, you need to be a seller. Like,
Mm.
it almost assuredly, if you're not going to get Ben Simmons and you're not going to be able to swing and hit this home run, then you got to start dumping. You got to figure out a place for Buddy Hield. You got to figure out a place for Harrison Barnes. Go cash in, get a couple of first round picks, get a couple of young players that might fit what's going on down the road. But for right now, like, that's who you are. Like, you showed us who you are. Like, there's no going back now. You just lost to the Bucks and it was a close game. Where was that fire and that intensity when you're playing the Houston Rockets and Detroit Pistons? If you had that same fire, that same passion, then you're not riding a 3-game losing streak, and you're actually in a position to still compete for the 10th seed. And we've made this magical 10th seed thing more than it is. And the Kings, basically what they would do is they would get a 1-game play-in, and if they didn't get hammered in that first one, they get another 1-game play-in and probably get hammered in that second. One of the two, they're going to get lit up, because that's who they are. They show up half the time, and that might even be generous. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow, but for my money, I start looking at the future right now. And Harrison Barnes is only under contract for 1 more year. This is the time to trade him when you actually can get value for him. Rashawn Holmes under contract for another 3 years after this year. I would consider keeping him because he's such a budget contract. But at the same time, like, everything should be on the table. If you're going to build around Fox and Halliburton, build around Fox and Halliburton right now. Young players, draft picks, and do what you can. And then if you need to, reload in the off season with some of those assets that you collect right now, because right now it's not going the way that you thought it would. And I'll also point out, last season, which was an absolutely miserable roster, it was a roster that I think had 6 players. They were 22 and 26 at the same time. This is inexcusable. This is a dereliction of duty by the players. And a lot of them need to go at this point because you can't be this bad. And people say, oh, well, what did you think? I'm like, I didn't think they would be this bad. They shouldn't be worse than last year's roster. And the Western Conference is worse this year. Like, where are you? Why aren't you showing up? You got a job to do, and it's to play basketball. And half the time you're shirking your responsibilities. So the players, they got Luke Walton fired, and they did nothing but talk about how they wanted to keep Luke around. They still got him fired. And then Alvin Gentry sitting here looking at the same exact thing. Like, they haven't responded at all. They've just been one of the biggest letdowns, and it's why I consider this probably the most disappointing team that I've ever covered in Sacramento, just because the talent isn't to be a 4 seed, but the talent isn't to be 12 games under 500, 48 games into season. You're just not that bad. So at some point, you gotta do something here.
If you become a seller, what does that look like in your opinion? Like, where does the buck stop? And I know, I think it stops with Rashawn, outside of, a deal that maybe you just can't pass up. Like, I don't know, James Wiseman or something like that. But but I think it stops with Rashawn. I think all bets are off for everybody else. I think you sell with Harrison, you sell with Buddy, you sell with Marvin. You even may sell with a guy like Mo Harkless. Like, I in your opinion, where does the buck stop? Like, when you talk about selling, where does it say, all right, it stops here with Rashawn, Tyrese, Fox? Does that sound good?
No, I think it stops at Tyrese and Fox. And even at this point, like, look, if something blows you away, then do it. Like, if something blows you away that makes you better moving forward next year, the year after that, then pull the trigger, because this thing is spun out, and at least you'd be losing for a reason. At least you would be losing to get a better draft pick, which at this point, like, I don't think that I would offer up my draft pick if I were the Kings at this point. The chance of them being like worse down the stretch is high. I mean, that's where we've gone. And, is Rashawn Holmes replaceable? Maybe not. But, can you get some of that budget out of like a guy like Damian Jones? Neemias Queta should play minutes down the stretch if this is who you are. And so far, this is who they've proven they are. And every time we think that they may have turned a corner, they go 180 and go right back around where they were before. So yeah, I don't think that there is a moment where you look at this team and say, what's off limits outside of maybe Halliburton, maybe Fox. Because if I'm talking just speculative, like, let's say the Chicago Bulls, who have struggled a little bit here, but they put a roster together to win. What if they take 2 injured young guys in Derrick Jones and Patrick Williams and offered them for Harrison Barnes? The answer is yes.
Man, a
Like,
heartbeat.
yeah, I mean, you take a step back right now with the hopes that Patrick Williams will be better next year. Derrick Jones is a unrestricted free agent. You're probably going to lose him. Maybe not. Maybe he enjoys his time in Sacramento. But again, like, start looking at deals where you're bringing in younger players that fit your player arc, if Fox and Halliburton are, and then reset your veterans down the road, because we learned already that it's very clear the core of this team is not good enough.
Why is this team so disappointing to you?
It's so disappointing because I always look at the previous season and I think, how can you build off what you had last year? And what was wrong with last year's roster, and what did you do to improve this year's roster? We all know that last season they were one of the worst defensive teams we've ever seen. I thought they made savvy moves at the deadline to go get Mo Harkless and Terrence Davis. Both of those players should improve your defense. You went out and you signed Alex Len. That should help your defense. You drafted Davion Mitchell. That should help your defense. I looked at this team versus last year's team, and I thought, okay, it's basically the same team that in a prorated version won 35 games, because we only had 72. They won 31, whatever. It prorated to 70 to 35 wins.
Mhm.
Now, if you're a 35 win team with no depth at all, I mean, that team literally limped into the season, not into the trade deadline, not to the end of the season. They didn't have enough depth from day one. And that was because they literally sat out the entire free agency window. And then at the 4 days in or 6 days in, signed Glenn Robinson III and Hassan Whiteside, who didn't fit at all. And then you walk into this year with the same core that basically was able to hold it together and win 35 games, the equivalent of. But then you added a bunch of depth that should have equated to, at a minimum, the same. But it shouldn't have even been that. You should have been a game or 2 or 3 than you were last year at this time, which means you should have been at 500 or slightly above. So, yeah, I mean, that's why it's disappointing, because talent-wise, this team does have talent. And if you look around the league, there are teams that would like some of the pieces that the Kings do have right now, which shows you that, again, the talent is there. Teams will take Rashawn Holmes. They would take De'Aaron Fox. They would take Halliburton. They would take Barnes. They will take Buddy Hield. Marvin Bagley might even be able to find a home at this point. You've got enough talent on the team that could play for other teams, and you haven't figured out how to put it together, and you haven't showed the heart and the intestinal fortitude, the cojones to show up every night and play basketball hard and earn your paychecks.
In your opinion, what does this say about De'Aaron Fox? And I know we like De'Aaron, but being fair, this all kind of happened on his watch as well. Was this something that you kind of look at as a learning experience for him, where maybe he had never gone through something like this and went through it on this level, on this NBA level, and he can learn from that and he will learn from that? Or is it something that might be concerning from you that all this kind of happened on his watch, being the best player on the team and everything?
Yeah, I think it's concerning. I mean, in all honesty, he just hasn't played as well as he did last season. He came out of the gates without the same speed and quickness and passion that we've seen in the past. At some point, I'm not all on board with the De'Aaron Fox has to be the leader of this team and all that stuff. But I'll say this, he just wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough for the first 20 something games of the season. And now he is getting back to where he was, sort of. But at the same time, his assist numbers have dropped off the board. You can put some of that on the fact that Halliburton is taking more of the load as far as distributor. But this team needs multiple distributors. They don't need De'Aaron Fox to just stop distributing and drop down to like 5 assists a game, because Tyrese Halliburton's picking up some of the slack. I mean, this team is broken at this point, and I think that, like, on the gravestone of this season, the biggest thing that I look at is that guys that the opposition wants shooting are the ones who are getting all the shots. They're the ones you are literally allowing the opposition to dictate the pace of the game, who gets shots almost every single night. And then on the defensive end, they dictate whatever the heck they want. And it's, again, we've talked about this. This team is soft. And at some point, you just have to break it up. Whether I think that the Kings could build around Fox still, sure. But am I all in like I was like maybe a week or 2 ago and saying like I wouldn't trade him at all? I don't know. Like if the offer's there that makes sense to reboot this thing in like a big giant red button that says reboot, I don't think you have to take a huge step back in talent. I think you can actually find a deal that you trade talent for talent when it comes to Fox. But you got to do something, because this thing it's broke, and it's not fun for anyone to watch or to be around at this point.
Tyrese played another game on Saturday where he played really well in the absence of De'Aaron Fox. Is this about a coach? Because you've spent a lot of time talking about, the sum of the parts, and there's talented guys on this roster, and that has been echoed all year. Like, why is this team 12 games under 500? The guys here are talented, Well, if we isolate it a little bit further, De'Aaron and Tyrese are obviously very talented, but there's got to be a concern that they don't play well together. And I know we can pick apart the rest of the roster and all of these different things, but it seems that there's a heightened concern over De'Aaron Fox. And now we're seeing Tyrese Halliburton. He seems to just continuously elevate his game when De'Aaron's not around.
Well, but I think a lot of that's on Ty as well. Like
Absolutely.
I mean, at some point, you can read a box score. He has access to Basketball Reference like the rest of us. He can see the games that they play well and the games that they don't. I thought one of the most telling things was Halliburton's out and we got Fox going for 29 and Terrence Davis going for 35 right alongside him.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go back to Terrence Davis all day long as a guy who just doesn't care and he's going to shoot. He's not going to hesitate. But I even watched the same game that you did. He's in front of it 500 people from Oshkosh against the Bucks. Shoot the ball, man. Get your shots. Like he ended up with 20 something points, right? But I think he had 12 shots. That's not.
Tyrese had 14. Yeah, he was 8 of 14.
Okay,
yep.
So if Fox is out, though, Fox isn't there. I need another 6 shots from you, man. Like you need to step up into that role fully, not just as a distributor. And I think he actually could have had quite a few more assists, but his teammates missed. He's a better shooter than anyone else on that team, and he needs to know that, and he needs to act accordingly. And so again, it's not just on Fox to figure out how to play with Halliburton or Halliburton. Halliburton has to figure it out as well. He's got to find spots that make De'Aaron Fox better, because I know he makes Richaun Holmes better. Like that was magical watching Holmes and Halliburton, like it looked like last season. All of a sudden, we lob after lob after lob, and Holmes just looked like himself again. All of that was on the just the wizardry that is Halliburton as a passer. But he still needs to figure out ways to get the guy in the corner involved, the guy in the elbow involved. He needs to get some of the other guys involved on those pick and rolls. And so I think he's a work in progress like everyone else is. But the future is so bright for him that I'm not concerned. I'm just concerned on whether he can figure out how to play with Fox specifically.
And see, with those things,
concerned that this organization is going to break them. Sorry, go ahead, Casey.
No, I was just going to say, with those things like that, though, James, maybe I'm too quick on the draw with it, but I see something with these guys sometimes. And Tyrese, he's not ever going to be different than what he is. Like, this is who he is. And you're going to live with Tyrese. And if you need him to be your second scorer or playmaker or whatever, you're going to live with him being like, yo, be more aggressive. Like that's in his DNA. That's who he's going to be. And I understand giving guys an opportunity to kind of grow and understand their games, but there are fundamental things about their games that don't change, right? He's a very smart guy. He's not going to all of a sudden take the bad shots he needs to take to average 17, 18 points a game. Like, he's just not going to do it. That's not how he plays basketball. And I look at guys like Tyrese, and like I'll kind of put him in a category of like a Ben Simmons, whereas I deem it more realistic. How do I put this? I deem it more realistic that you can find a coach or a situation to make Russell Westbrook calm down than finding a situation that will ramp up Ben Simmons or Tyrese Halliburton. You know what I'm saying? Like when I talk about,
it's easier to tell somebody to slow down than to speed up.
Yeah, those guys that you have to hope, like, well, if you just turn it on, like they're not going to turn it on. They're just not. It doesn't happen. Like you can, like I said, get a guy to slow it down and things slow down and that'll work. But those guys that you have to like, hey, I need you to do more times than not, they're not going to do more.
Mm-hmm.
I get what you're saying, and typically I agree. Like I know it was always like Paul Westphal used to say it all the time with DeMarcus Cousins. So much easier to try to tone down a fire than to try to light one under somebody. But every single time he's running the show, he's 20 and 10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about someone who hasn't shown that that's who they are. We're saying that they're not showing who they are when the other guy is there. And so I think that's the problem. Like, he needs to actually have like that mentality every single time he steps on the court. He can't demur to someone else. He cannot just let someone else dictate who and what he's going to be in a game. And so, like, as he gets older and as he gets more mature in the league, I to be honest with you, I thought there was a point where he might be like a 15 or 16 point per game guy, like moving forward in the NBA. Like, that would be his cap, right? I don't believe that at all at this point. Every single time it's him without Fox, he puts up 20 and 10. And it's not like a difficult 20. He cakewalks to 20, and he doesn't even have another distributor on the court.
It's 23.6 and 11.4 to be exact.
Without Fox?
Without De'Aaron. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's crazy how good he is without Fox. But again, you got to enforce your will. You got to imprint yourself on the game. You know, that's Luke Walton said it early in the season. We've told Tyrese we want him to imprint his personality on this team. We love his personality. We love his basketball IQ. We love what he brings to the court. We need more, more, more. That is exactly. So I think, again, if you take Fox off of this team, we're going to see something like that. I think we'll see 18 and 10 or 18 and 9 from Halliburton, like, right away. Like, that would be his averages. It might even be more. But are you winning? And, you know, I don't want to watch this team dump like the best assets they have unless they're getting back opposing franchises' best assets. And until they figure out how to do that, then, you know, I think you have to keep those two together and hope that it just takes more time. Because, again, go back and look at the first 2 years of CJ McCollum. Like, he just wasn't that good. Tyrese is a much better player at the same time than what we saw out of a guy like CJ. And I don't even think CJ is his ceiling at this point. Like, he has I don't know, he has Chris Paul-esque like instincts. Like, his instincts are that good, and I think he could easily lead the league in assists every single year.
So sorry, Dave, but like, what do you think? Because I don't have the answer. I don't know. That's why I'm asking for both of you guys' opinion. What do you think the issue is with him? Is it literally a status thing with the guy next to him? Because you think about it, when Fox isn't there, it's not like he's playing with Anthony Roberson, somebody who never shoots. He's playing with two hired guns, Buddy Hield and Terrence Davis. Like, they shoot a lot, but yet he still finds a way to find his shots. But when De'Aaron is there, we have this issue. So is it all like a mental of like, this is supposed to be De'Aaron's team, so I'm going to fall back? Is it because it kind of feels like it's not even necessarily a style of play, because he plays with other shooters and still puts up points. What do you think it is, James?
Yeah, but I don't think it's. I think you're missing something. When Fox is off the court, that's what is Fox averaging on the season? 16, 17 shots per game. Like, those shots are gone when Fox is there.
That's true.
And so he doesn't have those opportunities. He also doesn't have the ball in his hands as much when Fox is on the court. So, like, look, I think that's part of the problem, right? This team is built to score, even though sometimes they don't score, which is like the most frustrating thing. But your best players are players that are basically, 18 to 20 point scorers. Your De'Aaron Fox, your Harrison Barnes, your Buddy Hield, and even Rashawn Holmes is a guy that is so incredibly efficient. So that's a lot of shots to go around. And then Ty has to be more forceful. But again, we talked about it just a couple of minutes ago. That's where a smart team, like, there should never be a point, and this isn't a knock on him. There should never be a point in a game where Chimezie Metu is 2 of 8 from the field in the first quarter. That is an epic failure of every single person on the court, because that is exactly what the opposition game planned and forced you to do. And so if Tyrese Halliburton is shooting 43.7% from three, he needs to shoot 8 times. He needs to shoot 9 times. I mean, I think one of the craziest thing that we've seen from Terrence Davis, he steps in and he's automatically averaging in games where he's actually starting and playing huge minutes. He's averaging over 10 3-pointers a game. Like, that's his job. His job is to come in and shoot. So I'm fine if Terrence Davis is shooting. I'm fine, even if Buddy Hield is shooting some of those shots that, we don't love. But when you're coming out of games and some of the guys that are leading this team in shots that are getting up all of these shots, you're just shaking your head and saying, that is exactly what the other team game plan for you to do. And, Marvin Bagley shooting a bunch of shots, and that's, again, that's another scorer. That's another guy who's made his money as a scorer. It's just crazy to me that we see, Damian Jones having to pull up for a 20-foot jumper because he's got nowhere else to go with the ball. That's who this team is. They aren't out thinking their opponent, and that's why they're bad. I mean, clearly.
We're talking Kings basketball here on this 49ers Monday, brought to you by City Center Financial. Refinance today below 1.99% APR at GoCityCenter.com. 49ers headed to the NFC Championship this weekend. We will have coverage for you all week here on D-Lo and KC. James Ham, our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, with us here. Thoughts on Daryl Morey's latest public negotiations tactic and mentioning that No. We didn't want De'Aaron Fox. We want Tyrese Halliburton and some picks, as reported in The Athletic today.
Yeah, and the immortal words of the late, great David Stern, life is a negotiation. Like, he's just going out there and saying whatever he wants at this point, and I've heard for a little while this interesting rumor that they were going to pull him down that they aren't going to trade him at all, that they're going to hold on to him during till this summer and then trade him for Damian Lillard or
James Harden's the new one.
James Harden, right? And I just still I'm stunned that, like, have they already agreed to a deal? Because I don't think they agreed to a deal. So if you're going to put Damian Lillard, or if you're going to put James Harden on the block, like, who says that either of those teams are going to take Ben Simmons, a player who hasn't played in over a year at that point, to jump in and be part of their squad? Who's just going to openly take on a guy who sat out a season and say, oh, it's no big deal, we'll take him on? And the last time he played, he cost his team, dramatically in the playoffs, and all of his teammates and coach rallied against him and threw him under the bus. Like, I don't get where they believe that there's value here. I also think that there's going to be a grievance here that we're going to see from the players union, where, they won't work with him. They promised to trade, and we haven't seen it. Like, this is a mess. And he just keeps kind of trying to drum up support for his guy on the open market. And I don't think that there is nearly as much value as people think. And, you are taking on a player who just sat out a year because he didn't like where he was. So what if he doesn't like where he's at the next spot?
Right.
So you are taking on a huge, huge risk when it comes to a guy like Simmons. And I don't think that Morey has played this well. I also think when he gets done with this, he's not going to have a lot of friends.
Oh,
so I don't think he's not going to have a lot of friends, because, we talked about this before, but, like, these are people. Every single one of these players are people. Every single one of these general managers are people, and you've treated them extremely poorly. Even this here, you're treating Tyrese Halliburton like a piece of steak. And, people remember that. And, I think that there's a way to get James Harden to Philadelphia without a trade. And I also think that James Harden decided last time around to go to Brooklyn over Houston. He made that decision. There were comparable deals on the table, and that's where he ended up going. And, so what would make him, what makes Morey think that it's just a done deal, that if he gets to this summer, he's going to be able to trade Ben Simmons for a flat out gold mine. Like at that point, it's like, nope, I'll take Simmons, I'll take Maxey, and I'll take Thibault, and you're taking on my version of Tobias Harris' contract. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to get some straight up deal where, oh, this just works out. And, again, Harden makes twice as much, 15, 16 million more than Simmons, if you can imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's going to have to be other pieces moving back and forth. Yeah, this is a mess. All of it's a mess. And
miss David Stern.
Yeah,
David Stern would have blown everybody up by now.
Yeah, somebody should have stepped in at some point and just said, "Hey, enough of this. This is trash. You're
Sixers
messing with the whole league."
Where's the Sixer ownership at? That's who needs to step in and be like, "We're looking."
Well,
I know people don't like when people say let the basketball people do basketball things, but there comes a point when it's like, all right, man, this is getting ridiculous.
I wondered too, as this latest crop of rumors popped up, I wondered too how much of this are potentially owners and basketball people taking a stand of, well, God damn it, we've got to stop letting these players dictate what they do. The inmates are running the asylum here in the NBA. God damn it, we let Anthony Davis do what he wants to. We're not going to let Ben Simmons do what he wants to. If he doesn't want to play, he can rot right there in his mental health program. And that's how in my head, that's how it all sounds.
I hate having the feeling that I have because I agree with you, and I don't rock with that school of thought by some of the owners that I think 100% feel that way. Mm-hmm. But I also, unrelated, I look at Ben Simmons and I'm like, you just okay not playing.
Yeah.
You're just okay not playing.
Same thing.
Kind of crazy to me, man. But I guess it might be a little bigger than just him playing with the Sixers.
It feels like it's a battle for the control of the NBA, like it's a ladder match or something, and the first one to, that's what it feels like. Ben Simmons is like suffering from the sins past of the National Basketball Association, and I don't think it's just owners. I think it's general managers. It might be coaches. I feel like Ben Simmons. Like this is all for Ben Simmons. I feel like there could be something a little more drastic, a little bit more deeper involved in all this.
At some point, we should probably remember that he averaged like 14 points a game last season.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, the last time he was on the court, he passed up a wide open dunk for a 3-point shot. He couldn't hit a free throw at all. Like, this is not a perfect player, and the fact that they're treating him as a perfect player. He's on the All-Star team 3 times because he's on one of the best teams in the league. And that's the way, and it's a big market team, and that's the way these things always work. I'll also point out this as my parting shot. Just remember that the NFL just took absolute ownership of the sports media world this weekend. He's just trying to steal back the thunder for a couple of days. That's what we're seeing today. This is trying to make sure that your guy is out there. And again, I'm shocked that we could have to wait the whole 3 weeks to figure out when this is going to happen, the 2.5 weeks at this point. But this is painful to watch. And again, if you're the Kings, you're in the worst situation possible. You just keep losing games. And if you're going to lose games right now, you should probably lose games while you're trying to get Ben Simmons up to speed and trying to get him back on the court as one of your players, than losing all these games and then making a trade and then losing a bunch more because you're waiting for other players to show up and to become who you think they can be.
We got a
really quick, Casey.
From Vivek. Go Niners.
Okay, all right. There you go. It's a 49ers Monday brought to you by Gilmore Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Right now, Gilmore is offering Niner fans a $49 furnace safety inspection. Just mention this ad. You get more with Gilmore, and you get more at thekingsbeat.com and with the Kings Beat podcast here on the Odyssey app or on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts from. You can catch up